She arrived ready for a confrontation, but Barack Obama simply wouldn't bite. He offered a gentle smile, waited patiently, and only then he spoke. In that precise moment, an undeniable calm settled over the stage, and it never truly lifted. The evening had begun, as most television debates do, with polite smiles, cordial greetings, and the usual pleasantries about the honor of being present. Yet this initial tranquility proved fleeting. Everyone watching, from the studio audience to those at home, could sense a palpable tension, a larger drama poised to unfold. The stage itself was impeccably set. Bright yet subtly diffused lights bathed the space in a warm golden glow, illuminating. The table where Barack Obama and Ivanka Trump sat facing each other. Between them sat the moderator, a figure widely respected for his ability to maintain order even when discussions grew heated. The chosen topic for the night: leadership in modern America. Simple words, deceptively loaded. Obama appeared just as people remembered him, utterly serene. His posture was composed, his smile gentle, his eyes reflecting a deep well of patience. He exuded a quiet confidence honed by years of navigating immense pressure. He carried himself like a man with nothing left to prove, his mere presence conveying significant weight. Ivanka, in stark contrast, was perfectly polished and outwardly confident. Her hair was impeccably styled, her tone smooth and deliberate. She moved with the assured grace of someone who had not only meticulously rehearsed her arguments, but genuinely believed in them. For her, this was more than just another debate. It was a critical opportunity to defend her family's image and safeguard her father's presidential legacy. The moderator initiated with light small talk. Obama chuckled softly at a self-deprecating joke about seeming to age slower than most presidents. Ivanka offered a polite smile, adding that her father often claimed the job energized him rather than wearing him out. It was all very pleasant, the kind of easy banter designed to relax an audience before the real conversation inevitably began. But beneath those surface smiles, invisible tension there. You could feel it in the fractional pauses, the way their gazes lingered a second too long when they met. There was history in that room, a long-standing political rivalry, fierce personal pride into fundamentally opposing views of what true power entailed. The moderator turned to Obama first. "Mr. President," he began, "you've often spoken about the importance of character in leadership. What does that concept mean to you?" Obama gave a small, thoughtful nod, pausing for a beat before responding. His voice was gentle yet undeniably firm. "I believe character is revealed in what you do when no one is watching. It's how you treat those who can offer you nothing in return." A murmur of agreement swept through the audience, punctuated by a few light claps. Ivanka listened, her smile unwavering, that practiced grace evident as she waited for her turn. The moderator then addressed her. "Miss Trump, you frequently stated that your father taught you leadership through action. Would you describe his approach?" Ivanka's smile broadened. "My father believes in results," she declared proudly. "He believes real leadership isn't about lengthy speeches or perfectly chosen words. It's about taking bold steps, even when others might not understand your vision." Her words hung in the air, a clear, unspoken counterpoint to Obama's thoughtful, measured style of governance. Obama remained impassive. His eyes stayed fixed on her, listening intently, his face utterly unreadable. Sensing the implicit comparison, the moderator leaned slightly into the microphone. "So, you're suggesting that leadership is fundamentally about action, even if that means being misunderstood?" Ivanka nodded, a confident tilt of her head. "Exactly. Some leaders spend more time talking about unity than actually building it. Father doesn't wait for universal agreement before doing what he believes is right." A quiet murmur rippled through the audience and the air thickened perceptibly. Bona had chosen her words carefully, but everyone understood the implication. Obama offered a polite, almost imperceptible smile. "That's certainly one way to approach it," he said softly, but offered no further comment. The moderator chuckled, a slightly awkward sound attempting to lighten the mood. "Well, it's certainly good to have both perspectives here tonight, but the tension had already begun its inexorable climb." Ivanka leaned back, crossing her legs with a deliberate motion, her gaze briefly flickering to Obama. A smirk played on her lips, a mix of confidence, amusement, perhaps even a challenge. She was clearly ready to press further. The next question struck closer to the bone. "Miss Trump," the moderator asked, "in your opinion, What is the biggest difference between your father's leadership and President Obama's? Ivanka's smile sharpened. I believe my father leads from the front. He doesn't hide behind words. Some people build legacies through speeches and memoirs while others build them through action. That line changed the mood instantly. It wasn't just a political statement, it was deeply personal. The audience gasped softly, recognizing her direct jab at Obama's post-presidency, implying his accomplishments were more rhetoric than tangible achievement. Obama didn't flinch. He merely tilted his head, his gaze meeting hers with calm curiosity, almost as if he were inviting her to continue. Ivanka, misinterpreting his silence as hesitation, pressed her advantage. It's easy to sound wise when you're no longer the one making the tough calls. My father doesn't have that luxury. He faces them every single day. The studio fell utterly quiet. Even the moderator seemed unsure whether to intervene. For a few brief seconds it appeared Ivanka had undeniably won the moment. Her expression was triumphant, confident, certain, proud. Obama remained still. No reaction, no rebuttal. He simply watched her, his hands clasped loosely in front of him. Those few seconds of silence felt infinitely longer than they were. The room held its breath, waiting for him to speak. For any word, but he didn't. Not yet. He merely offered a calm, knowing smile, one that hinted he was carefully reserving his response for precisely the right moment. It was the kind of smile that silently declared, "You think you've cornered me, but you've only handed me the key." The audience wasn't yet aware, but that quiet patience was the calm before an impending storm. Obama wasn't ignoring the insult. He was meticulously setting the stage. When he finally chose to speak, he would subtly, profoundly turn the entire conversation on its head. The tension in the studio escalated, a quiet storm gathering force. What had started as a calm, respectful exchange now felt heavy with unspoken challenge. Ivanka had unequivocally made her point about action over words, and she knew it had landed. The corners of her lips lifted slightly, a smile that masked both unwavering confidence and calculated intent. She wasn't finished. Not yet. The moderator, sensing a spark, but not yet a full conflagration, turned to Obama again. Mr. President, how do you respond to this idea that some leaders merely talk about change while others actively make it happen? Obama took a small measured breath, his hands resting loosely together, his voice steady. Change, he said softly, when it is truly real, doesn't always appear loud or dramatic. Sometimes it unfolds quietly in places where no one is watching. In classrooms, in hospitals, and small towns across our nation, leadership isn't solely what you do for those who already agree with you. It's what you do for those who don't. A ripple of appreciative nods passed through the audience. But before the mood could soften, Ivanka seized the opportunity. She wasn't about to let the moment slip away. All due respect, she began, her tone calm, but edged with something sharper. That sounds nice, but people don't live off words, they live off results. My father built things, real things, businesses, jobs, opportunity. He didn't just inspire hope, he created it. The moderator glanced between her and Obama, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, unsure if the discussion was veering too far into direct confrontation. Obama offered no reaction. Stillness made the air feel even denser, tighter. Ivan, misinterpreting his composure as weakness, as hesitation, decided then to push further. She gracefully crossed one leg over the other and locked her gaze with his. You know, she said, some people say leadership is about grace, but grace doesn't pay the bills. Perhaps that's why so many people felt left behind during your time in office. You spoke beautifully. But where was the real change? A collective murmur rose from the audience. That line hit hard. It wasn't merely a policy criticism. It was deeply personal. She was attacking his reputation, his legacy, even his fundamental connection with ordinary Americans. She was daring him to respond. Obama remained silent, his eyes fixed on her, his expression still unreadable. For a brief second, the silence almost suggested she had struck a nerve. Ivanka, sensing an advantage, pressed on. You know, Mr. President, it's easy to look calm and wise when you're out of the spotlight, when you're not the one making the tough calls. My father doesn't get that luxury. He doesn't get to just talk about hope. He has to deliver it. Her words were sharp yet smooth, delivered in a tone that feigned respect while subtly cutting deep beneath the surface. She turned toward the moderator with a proud smile as if declaring, "I've won this round." The moderator offered a nervous chuckle. "Strong points from both sides," he said, trying desperately to soften the moment, but no one was listening to him. All eyes remained fixed on Obama. Everyone in the room yearned to see how he would respond. He didn't, not immediately. He appeared thoughtful, almost amused, like an experienced teacher who had just heard a confident student make a fundamental mistake. He adjusted slightly in his seat, still calm, still composed. He didn't rush his words. He was choosing them with exquisite care, allowing the silence to do its powerful work for him. Ivanka noticed, and for the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. The silence stretched on longer than she anticipated. The confident smile she wore began to seem more like a brittle mask than genuine assurance. She wasn't accustomed to being met with such unyielding stillness. Her world was one of quick rebuttals and rapid exchanges. Obama's quiet composure made her own words echo back at her, heavier and more potent than when she had spoken them. Finally, he leaned forward slightly, his voice low and even. "Ivanka, you mentioned results, and you're right. Results matter. But what kind of results are we truly talking about?" His tone was calm yet undeniably infused with steel. A leader can build towers, open offices, generate profits. But if those results primarily serve only a select few, is that truly leadership or merely self-interest cleverly disguised as achievement? Ivanka tried to interject, but Obama continued, his voice unwavering. "You said your father built things. That's true. But real leadership isn't just about building physical structures for oneself. It's about building trust. And that, Ivanka, is something money can never buy." A wave of soft applause rippled through the audience. Ivanka's smile faltered noticeably. Obama's words were smooth, unhurried, but each one carried the precision of a slow blade cutting through noise. He paused again, granting her space, just enough to believe she could recover. She straightened, tilting her head slightly, and replied with respect, "Mr. President, perhaps people are simply tired of moral lectures. They want action. My father acts. That's why people love him." Obama smiled faintly, almost kindly. "Think that," he said softly, "is also why they fear him too." That single line shifted the very atmosphere of the room. Ivanka blinked, visibly caught off guard by the unexpected reply. Obama sounded neither angry nor emotional, merely factual. His calm tone made the words hit with far greater impact. Ivanka attempted to laugh it off, but her voice emerged thinner than before. "I wouldn't say fear, I'd say respect." Obama nodded slowly. "Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference when power becomes the sole objective." The audience murmured again, the energy now undeniably shifting toward him. Ivanka opened her mouth to speak, but found no words that wouldn't sound offensive. For the first time, her polished confidence truly slipped. She glanced toward the moderator, but even he was now watching Obama, if equally captivated by where this conversation was heading. Obama didn't press further. He leaned back and said quietly, "I understand loyalty. I respect family. But when your loyalty prevents you from acknowledging the truth, even to your own, that's not strength. That's surrender." The room fell into a profound silence. It wasn't the silence of confusion or boredom. It was the silence of stark realization. Ivanka's earlier jab now felt utterly insignificant compared to what he had just delivered. Obama didn't smile or gloat. He simply looked at her with calm empathy, as if he genuinely wished her to understand rather than merely feel embarrassed. But Ivanka's composure had visibly cracked. Though no one uttered it aloud, everyone watching knew. This debate had decisively shifted in his favor. The storm she had unleashed was now unmistakably beginning to turn back on her. The air in the studio grew thick, almost heavy. The soft hum of the overhead lights, the only sound filling the protracted pause between Ivanka and Obama. She had entered confident, sure of her ground, but now the silence stretched far longer than she had anticipated. The absolute stillness of the man seated opposite her was unnerving. Obama didn't appear angry or insulted, simply looked patient, and that patience, strangely, it's far more unsettling than any outburst could have been. Ivanka shifted slightly, adjusting the cuff of her sleeve, a subtle attempt to regain the smooth composure she always presented in public. She managed a faint smile, the kind that silently proclaimed, "I'm still in control." But deep down she could feel it, a slow, creeping sense that the room, the moment itself, was slipping inexorably away from her. The moderator, eager to steer the discussion, spoke carefully. "Let's bring this back to leadership," he suggested. "Both of you have spoken about strength and results, but how do personal values truly shape those results? Can family influence the way a leader makes decisions?" Ivanka sees this as her cue. Her posture immediately straightened and she quickly found her voice again. "Of course, family shapes leadership." She stated with conviction, "My father is the best example of that. Everything he does, every choice he makes is for his family and for the country he loves. He's guided by loyalty to his people, to us, and to his own deeply held beliefs. That's what makes him a strong leader." She glanced at Obama as she spoke, almost daring him to challenge her. But he didn't. Not yet. She continued gaining momentum, something I've always admired about him. He doesn't separate the personal from the political. His family is his foundation, his motivation. She mentally approved of the line. It sounded good, perhaps a little rehearsed, but powerful, if she expected applause, or at least a nod of respect. Instead, Obama looked down for a moment, almost as if contemplating something quietly within himself. When he finally looked up, his eyes met hers. There was something subtly different there, a calm that carried immense weight. "Family is important," he said softly. "Shapes who we are." "I understand that." Ivanka offered a slight smile, taking it as agreement. "Exactly," she said quickly. "Family gives purpose to everything we do." Obama's next words, however, instantly altered the entire mood of the room. He leaned in slightly and asked almost too casually, "Barron is your son." It wasn't loud. It wasn't harsh. It was quiet. Delivered with a deceptive gentleness, but it landed with a force that reverberated through every corner of the studio. Ivanka's smile froze. The audience went completely. Still, even the moderator seemed unsure if he had heard correctly. The silence that followed was sharp, profoundly uncomfortable, like a wire pulled impossibly taut. Ivanka blinked, confused for a split second before letting out a soft, awkward laugh. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice just a touch higher. Then before Obama didn't repeat the question, simply looked at her, his expression calm but utterly unreadable. She quickly recovered, brushing off the moment with practiced grace. "No," she said, still smiling, though her tone was perceptibly thinner now. "Barron is my brother. I think everyone knows that." Obama nodded slightly, the corner of his mouth lifting almost imperceptibly. "Of course," he said quietly. "What?" "It's just that you talk about family as though it's one single shield that covers everyone around your father. I was only wondering where that shield stops." Ivanka tried to respond, but the words caught in her throat. A strange heat rose in her chest. Part irritation, part profound confusion. She wasn't used to being caught off guard like this. Trying desperately to regain control, she managed, "When you grow up in a family like mine, loyalty is everything. You don't separate who you are from who you love. It's what keeps you strong." Obama smiled again, a knowing smile this time. "I can respect loyalty," he said, "but when loyalty begins to replace truth, it becomes something else entirely." The audience murmured softly. Ivanka's face tightened. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. President. I'm not implying," Obama said calmly, just observing, paused, allowing his words to sink in. "Your father once said something in an interview, something about how close he was to you. Many people found it unusual, but I'm sure he meant no harm." Ivanka's face stiffened. She opened her mouth to answer, but again, the words wouldn't come. Obama's voice had remained perfectly even, respectful even. Yet the meaning beneath it was undeniably clear. He wasn't directly attacking her, was shining an uncomfortable light on the space between pride and denial, on the things said and unsaid within her own family that had always followed her like whispers. She forced another laugh, but this time it sounded entirely artificial. "I don't think that's relevant here," she said quickly, looking to the moderator. "We're here to talk about leadership, not personal jokes taken out of context." Obama nodded, his tone still gentle. "Of course," he said. "But isn't it interesting how the personal and the political always find their way back together, especially when we insist they shouldn't?" That line hit harder than any direct insult could have. It was polite, even kind on the surface, but it left Ivanka no room to maneuver. She had built her argument on family pride, and Obama had just subtly but definitively turned that very foundation into a searing question of boundaries and truth. The room remained quiet. Cameras rolled, capturing every nuance, every face, and the audience was locked on her, waiting for her next move. Ivanka took a deep breath. "My father loves his family. It's not something I'll ever apologize for." Obama nodded again, his expression still calm. "Love is never something to apologize for," he said softly. "But sometimes love makes people blind. And when that blindness affects an entire nation, then it ceases to be love. It becomes something else." Profound stillness descended after that, a long, heavy silence that seemed to press down on everyone at once. Ivanka looked down briefly, then up again, her face composed, but noticeably pale. She desperately wanted to answer him. She wanted to conjure something clever, something to turn the moment back in her favor. But for once, her voice wouldn't cooperate. Obama simply sat back, saying nothing more. The question still lingered in the air like an unwelcome ghost. "Baron, is your son?" Going with a meaning far deeper than the words themselves. And in that heavy silence it was clear to everyone watching. The balance had shifted completely. The silence that followed felt like a long-held breath that refused to exhale. No one spoke. No one coughed. No one dared to move. The weight of Obama's seemingly innocuous question still hung, twisting itself around every mind in the room. Ivanka could feel every heartbeat reverberating inside her chest. Confidence. The polished calm she wore like armor had shattered. She attempted to fill the void with a smile, the kind that had once effortlessly softened in tense meetings or awkward interviews. But now the smile looked brittle, fragile. Her mind raced, frantically searching for an escape. She had faced criticism. Before harsh interviews, political scandals, salacious gossip columns. But this was profoundly different. Obama's words hadn't been cruel. They were worse than cruel. They were quiet, and quiet words, when timed with such exquisite precision, possessed the power to shatter everything. The moderator's eyes darted nervously between them, but he too remained silent, seemingly trapped in the gravity of the moment. Cameras continued to roll, capturing every flicker of emotion that crossed Ivanka's face. Confusion, frustration, and that faint chilling trace of fear that surfaces when one truly comprehends the immense power of silence. Obama didn't move. He didn't lean forward or back. He simply waited. He had learned long ago that silence could achieve what arguments never could reveal truth without uttering another word. The 31 seconds dragged on. Each second felt like a full minute in eternity. Ivanka opened her mouth once, but no sound emerged. She shut it again, swallowing hard. The confidence that had imbued her voice earlier now felt forced somewhere deep down, locked behind an insurmountable wall of uncertainty. Finally, she managed to speak. "I think," she began, pausing for breath, "I think what I meant earlier was that family gives leaders their purpose, reminds them who they are fighting for." Her voice trembled slightly on the last word. She knew it, and so did everyone listening. The calm rhythm for which she was famous had completely vanished. Obama nodded gently as if acknowledging her effort. Then, in that same quiet tone that compelled people to lean in to truly listen, he said, "Purpose is good, but purpose without responsibility can be dangerous. It makes people believe they're right simply because they mean well." Ivanka blinked, her face stiffening. "I don't think that's what's happening here," she replied, trying desperately to find her footing again. "Maybe not," Obama said. "But that's the inherent risk when power and family become indistinguishable. You start protecting your name more than you protect your nation." That single sentence struck harder than the question before it. There was no anger in his voice, no accusation. It's just truth delivered so plainly, it could not possibly be ignored. Ivanka's hands clenched, hidden in her lap. She yearned to defend herself, to remind him that she had meticulously built her own name, her own career, her own achievements. But everything she conceived sounded defensive, small, or overtly scripted. And the one thing she knew she absolutely couldn't afford at that moment was to sound rehearsed. She tried to smile again, but her voice betrayed her mounting frustration. "I think my father's record speaks for itself," she said quickly. Obama nodded. "It does," he agreed. "That's why people are still speaking about it." The audience reacted quietly. Few soft laughs, not cruel ones, but the kind that broke them. Tension just enough for people to breathe again. Ivanka, however, did not laugh. She pressed her lips together, realizing that every response she offered was being deftly turned back toward her. Every defense only served to make her appear smaller. And then unexpectedly, Obama softened his tone. "You know, Ivanka," he said, "being in that spotlight isn't easy. People naturally expect you to defend the ones you love. I understand that, but sometimes truly loving someone means having the courage to question them." That line shifted something profound in the room. It wasn't harsh. It was deeply human. It felt less like a strike and more like genuine advice. Yet that very gentleness made it sting all the more because it wasn't just about her father anymore. It was about her. Ivanka's eyes flickered downwards for a moment. The first genuine sign of unease she had displayed. She wanted to say something strong, something memorable, but her thoughts tangled. Every phrase that came to mind felt like stepping deeper into quicksand. The moderator finally tried to interject, speaking with a nervous laugh. "Well, that's certainly a lot to think about," he said. "Perhaps we should move on to the next topic. Da. But before he could redirect the discussion, Obama spoke again, calmly but firmly. "No, I think this is the topic. Leadership isn't merely a collection of slogans or buildings or profits. It's a reflection of your choices when no one can stop you. And sometimes family makes it extraordinarily difficult to see those choices clearly." Ivanka sat perfectly still, the immense weight of those words settling over her. Her earlier energy had completely dissipated. All she could do was breathe through the suffocating silence that followed, knowing that anything she said now would sound like a desperate excuse. Then came the longest quiet of all. It lasted only 31 seconds, but it felt endless. 31 seconds of nothing. No applause, no laughter, no debate, just silence. Pure, uneasy silence. And in that silence, everyone watching, both in the audience and at home, witnessed a fundamental shift. Wasn't just about a single question anymore. It was about truth. Obama had achieved something rare. It transformed an argument into a mirror. And Ivanka, for all her poise and discipline, had no choice but to confront her reflection in it. At last, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Well," she said softly, almost to herself, "I suppose everyone has their own definition of leadership." Obama smiled gently. "They do," he said, "but only one of them truly stands the test of time." The crowd began to clap slowly at first, then louder, the sound growing like a rising wave. Ivanka looked down, then up again, forcing a polite smile as the applause filled the room. She didn't argue anymore. She didn't interrupt because deep down she knew that 31 seconds of silence had spoken louder than anything she could possibly have said. And as the applause echoed, she realized the stark truth of it. Sometimes silence isn't just the end of a debate, the unmistakable sound of someone losing it. When the applause finally faded, what remained was a strange, pervasive stillness. Not the sharp, tense silence from before, but something softer, like the air after a storm has passed, leaving a quiet, altered landscape. Ivanka remained seated, outwardly composed. Yet her calm felt rehearsed, fragile, as if a single wrong word could shatter it completely. The cameras were still rolling. The moderator's voice was trying to move things along, but everyone's eyes remained fixed on her. The conversation had irrevocably shifted. The energy had changed, and there was no denying who now truly commanded the room. Barack Obama hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't insulted her, hadn't even interrupted her, yet somehow he had taken complete, undeniable control. Ivanka managed that polished, professional smile she had perfected over years in the public eye. "I think I've said all I needed to say," she murmured, her tone light but careful. She adjusted the papers on the table, a gesture that clearly served no real purpose, then slowly stood up. The moderator blinked, unsure. "Leaving us, Miss Trump?" he asked, his voice betraying a surprise. She nodded slightly. "I have another engagement to attend," she said. Though everyone in the room knew without a shadow of a doubt that wasn't the truth. The truth was written all over her in the rigid stiffness of her shoulders, in the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She desperately wanted to leave before another question could come her way, before another meticulously crafted sentence could unravel her defenses further. Obama didn't stop her. He simply nodded. A gesture of quiet acknowledgement, not of triumph, "Thank you for your thoughts, Ivanka," he said, his voice calm and even. She gave him a brief nod in return, almost mechanical, then turned and walked off stage. The sharp echo of her heels clicking against the floor was the only sound for a few seconds. Every step she took seemed to carry the immense weight of pride, embarrassment, and something deeper, the quiet, stark understanding that she had been utterly outmatched. Not by aggression, but by grace. As she disappeared behind the curtain, Obama leaned back in his chair, exhaling softly. The moderator, visibly relieved to have the focus. Schiff turned to him. "Well," he said with a half-smile, "that was quite an exchange." Obama chuckled lightly. "Just a conversation," he replied, "though sometimes conversations tell us more than we expect." The audience laughed, the tension easing significantly. Underneath that laughter, there was something else, a profound sense of respect. People could feel that they had just witnessed something far beyond mere politics or winning points. It was about control, composure, and truth. Obama straightened, his voice calm yet commanding. "You know," he said, "we all claim we want truth, but truth has this funny way of making people uncomfortable, especially when it comes too close to home. The hardest thing isn't hearing the truth, it's admitting it when it's staring you directly in the face." The moderator nodded. "That's a strong point," he said softly. Obama continued, "Leadership isn't about having all the answers, it's about asking the right questions, even or perhaps especially when those questions make people uneasy." The audience listened and wrapped silence. His words weren't rehearsed or dramatic, they flowed naturally, yet each sentence landed with unerring precision. He paused, looking thoughtful. When power is treated like a family heirloom, it stops serving the people and starts protecting itself. That's when nations lose their way. And the truth, he said, looking up at the crowd, always finds a way to bring them back. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even directed at anyone by name. But everyone knew exactly who he meant. And more importantly, everyone understood why he had said it. The moderator, attempting to inject some levity back into the moment, smiled. "You always have a way of ending things on a powerful note," he said. Obama smiled back, a small, knowing smile. "I just believe words should leave people thinking, not arguing." The audience clapped again, louder this time, not because of a clever comeback, but because of the deep truth embedded within his unwavering calmness. It wasn't victory through humiliation. It was victory through profound restraint. Backstage, Ivanka stood in front of a mirror, touching up her makeup with hands that weren't quite steady. Her reflections stared back at her, polished, flawless, and utterly exhausted. She had faced tougher interviews, sharper critics, but never someone who had disarmed her so completely without ever raising his tone. Obama hadn't cornered her with facts or accusations. It simply held up a mirror and made her see what she desperately didn't want to. For the first time in a long while, she didn't have a ready line, a clever spin, or a pre-prepared talking point to lean on. The quiet, uncomfortable truth of that moment. Those 31 seconds that steadfastly refused to fade kept replaying in her mind. Back on stage, Bama stood, shook hands with the moderator, and graciously thanked the audience. As he walked off, the applause followed him. Not the wild cheering kind, but a respectful, lingering ovation. The kind that meant people weren't just reacting, they were reflecting. He passed through the same curtain Ivanka had vanished behind the hum of the crowd still faintly audible. Someone backstage congratulated him on the discussion. He just smiled and said, "It's not about winning, it's about clarity outside." The night air was cool. Cameras flashed as he exited the building, but he didn't look their way. His thoughts weren't on the debate or the headlines that would surely follow. He was thinking about something he had once told a group of young leaders. If you have to raise your voice to make your point, perhaps your point isn't strong enough. That night, he had proven it once again. Ivanka's departure had communicated everything words couldn't. Her silence, her exit, her carefully chosen, brittle smile, all of it told the story of what happens when overconfidence meets unshakable conviction and utterly fails to hold its ground. The debate was over, but its echo, that single-pointed question, "Baron, is your son?" would linger far longer than anyone expected. And in that echo, Obama's calm, resonant voice would always remain a quiet reminder to everyone who heard it that real power isn't about dominance, it's about dignity.